I want to bring in Republican Congressman Mike McCaul of Texas. He's the chairman emeritus of both the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. President Trump posted on social media this morning that the new civilian nuclear deal reached between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia is, quote, totally subject to Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords to normalize relations with Israel. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just broke his silence on the deal to applaud this latest development. Where do you stand on this nuclear deal with the Saudis and the conditions now imposed?
Well, I think it's a carrot-stick approach to incentivize Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. I think the final end goal result should be normalization in the Middle East. That's where I think the administration wants this to end up at the end of the day. You have a couple of concerns, Wolf. One is that Israel doesn't want a two-state solution, so we're going to have to work that out with Mr. Netanyahu. Secondly, I don't have all the details on this nuclear plan. We're all for a peaceful nuclear energy program in the Middle East. We've talked to Iran about this for years. The UAE has one. I would say it should be modeled after what we've done with the UAE, and that is to not provide enriched uranium to the Saudi, not to allow them to enrich their own uranium, but rather provide that to them. I think there's a big distinction there in the details because we don't want them to have the power to enrich their own uranium. That could give them the power to build a nuclear bomb, the same message we've been sending to Iran, if that makes sense.
As you noticed, Congressman, Saudi Arabia has always previously demanded that Israel first recognize a Palestinian independent state, a two-state solution, as it's called, a new state of Palestine alongside Israel, in order to consider signing on to the Abraham Accords, which the Trump administration in its first term worked out, bringing several Middle East Arab countries into a peaceful relationship with Israel. What has changed to make that at least a little bit more realistic at this point for the Saudis to follow the lead of some of these other Middle Eastern countries?
Well, I think the Abraham Accords were a great start. It provides the framework for this. If you have Saudi Arabia join, that is literally Mecca, the headquarters of the Arab world joining with Israel. Symbolically, I can't overemphasize how big of a deal that is in the Middle East. And again, I think the question here is going to be, again, the two-state solution, whether Israel's able to agree to something like that. And where would the Palestinian state be? Would it be somewhere in Gaza? Would it be in what is known as Judea, Samaria, that the Israelis find in the Bible as part of Israel? It sounds easy and simple from 30,000 feet above the clouds, but when you get down into the details of this, I can tell you in Israel, it's a very complex thing to work out.
And there's Israeli elections coming up in October. We'll see what emerges from that if the Prime Minister Netanyahu gets reelected. On the Iran war, Congressman, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that the country is, quote, Iran begging us to make a peace deal. But whenever we reach an agreement, Iran seems to break it, at least according to the Trump administration. Rubio keeps saying that President Trump's policy is, quote, a head for an eye. Is that the right approach right now? How does this conflict ever get resolved?
Look, Wolf, I'm all for negotiating peace. I don't trust this regime as long as this regime is in power. And unfortunately, we did not take out the regime when we started this invasion. We're going to have a problem. I personally think the best approach here is to allow our CENTCOM commander to execute his military plan to take out their ability to hit tankers in the Straits of Hormuz, and also dismantle their nuclear facility. Our military is capable, if we end the start and stop approach of stopping to negotiate and then starting up a military campaign. We need to allow our military to do what they do best and then negotiate from the rubble. I think this back and forth approach is not the right one, and it will guarantee that this thing delays into the midterm elections, which is precisely what Iran is trying to do right now.
In his Truth Social post just a little while ago, Congressman, the president said that the Houthis are starting up again, his words, shooting at 2 Saudi Arabian ships last night. Please let this truth serve to represent that if they do this again, the United States will hold Iran responsible in that the Houthis are a surrogate and a proxy of Iran, and major military punishment will be inflicted upon Iran and, of course, the Houthis themselves. So it looks like this whole war situation could really escalate even a lot further, right?
Of course. I mean, the Houthi rebels are an extension, a proxy of Iran in Yemen. You've got Hezbollah in Lebanon. You've got Hamas in the Gaza. You know, and again, I don't, this reactionary approach to war is not a path to victory in my judgment. A path to victory is we define the objective for the military and we achieve that military objective. We don't respond to Iran and the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas. We set forth what the objective is for victory. Now that we've made this decision to go in, the Colin Powell doctrine asserts that you go all in to win, and if you cannot achieve that objective, you get the heck out of there.
The House took the first step, as you know, toward funding President Trump's war with Iran by a very narrow margin just yesterday. But its eventual path in the Senate right now is unclear. Watch what one Senate Republican just told CNN. Listen to this.
I think the Iran war has not been a success. I've been opposed to the Iran war from the beginning. I think by any objective measure, we're worse off than we were before the war.
How do you think voters would react if the GOP Congress approved $70 billion or so for Iran before the midterms?
I think people are mostly upset about how much things cost, you know, so when they go to see gas prices, but it's also really just the all across the board.
Will there be backlash in November?
Probably.
So how do you respond to Republican Senator Rand Paul?
Well, Rand Paul has never been for the military, and so I'll leave his comments to him. I think he is voicing a growing concern about gas prices and affordability, but I think the bigger issue, Wolf, as I see on the Hill, is a growing consensus of frustration that this is dragging out too long. When we know that our CENTCOM commander can finish this job if given the orders to do so, I would urge the president to not listen to the naysayers within our party, to finish the job he started, to allow his CENTCOM commander to do so, because we know they have the capability to do it. If we don't do that, and if we're reactive all the time in the Straits of Hormuz, then Iran is going to continue to create mischief, to strike tankers, to order its proxies like the Houthis to hit Saudi and the tankers in the Straits, and this is not going to end anytime soon. It's within our grasp, but we got to go forward.
Let's see what happens. I know you're amidst all of this, Congressman, pushing Congress to pass a bipartisan Russia sanctions bill in honor of the late Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Some Senate Democrats are now raising concerns that the legislation could hand too much power to President Trump. When lawmakers have so little time left in this current session before the midterms in November, how does this actually get done? What are the risks for Ukraine right now if it doesn't?
Oh, the risks are very high, and I was just in Ukraine with Zelensky. So is Lindsey Graham. This is his final parting wish before he left Earth. He was a dear friend and a mentor to me. It's absolutely essential we get this peace done. As they are winning the drone war on the border in the occupied territories in the Donbass, which I firsthand witnessed, the final blow to Putin will be this sanctions bill, which would bleed his economy and get him to the negotiating table. Remember, Zelensky's prepared for a ceasefire and to negotiate a peaceful resolution. It's Mr. Putin that's not willing to go for a ceasefire and a negotiated settlement. This sanctions bill is key for peace in that part of the world, and without it, this thing's going to go on for a long time.
Congressman Mike McCaul.